Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Pato. Pato, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Pretty
I'm
excited to
uh,
be
I'm
here.
excited today. We're going to talk about something fun, but before we talk about what we're going to do, let's talk a little bit about you. So, for people who aren't familiar with your work, do you want to give us a little bit of an overview of yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, I'm a do-it-all, right? I'm a Google developer expert in Angular and web technologies, but I don't like to call myself an expert because I feel like there's always like room to grow, and there's someone always like that knows better than you.
Sure,
And
sure.
so I don't like that. I think the title should be renamed like Google developer advocate for whatever technology, but that's just my personal point of view. I'm a senior developer advocate currently for a company called OneSignal. OneSignal is a push notification provider and SMS messages and emails as well. And we have several open source projects for React, Angular, React Native, Vue, iOS, Android, and essentially every single device and tool possible. What else? I'm just a people's person, and that is the reason why I decided to change my career a little bit from just being a software engineer into a developer advocate.
Nice, very nice. Well, cool. So today we are going to be talking about something that I think was popularized by Google, which is progressive web apps. And so this is a term that I hear thrown around a lot, right? Like people will say, oh, it needs to be a progressive web app, or they'll use it as a description of building a modern app. But I've heard it used somewhat inconsistently, and sometimes I hear it used almost interchangeably with the idea of progressive enhancement, or I hear it used as a description of like mobile friendly. And so I think that there's a little bit of confusion in the community about what a progressive web app actually is. So maybe we could start with just a definition. What is a progressive web app?
A PWA or a progressive web application, in my personal point of view, is a regular web app with superpowers, right?
Okay, all right.
That's the simplest way that I like to describe it. So you can do exactly the same as a regular web application, but since you're using some tricks that probably we're going to be talking about later in the stream, you can make your application go further and have these awesome superpowers like installing the application on your phone, right? Caching strategies, caching network, and just make your application extremely performant.
Okay. And is this the sort of thing that is there a check, like is there a true false statement about progressive web apps? Like is it if you hit these check boxes it is a PWA, or is it more like a PWA is a state of mind?
I mean, I think it's kind of both. It's a state of mind, but it's not definitely for sure. Definitely, there's a checklist. So for you to have a PWA, for sure, you need three things. First of all, your web app, right?
Hmm.
If you don't have your JavaScript, you don't have your HTML, you don't have your CSS, you don't have an app, right? Second, you need a manifest, that
Okay.
JSON. The manifest, that JSON is just a JSON file that has certain properties that tells the browser, hey, this is the icon of my progressive web application. This is the icon that you're going to use when you install the application on your device.
Hmm.
So it looks like a native application, right?
Got it.
And the most important and the coolest thing about progressive web applications are the service workers. Service
Service
workers, in my
workers.
personal point of view, they are the brain behind progressive web applications.
Gotcha. That's very cool. So a progressive web app is that's a short checklist. That makes me happy because I was worried that there was going to be a lot to it, right? So this sounds exciting. So a manifest tells the browser a little bit about what the app is, so that it can display it properly and install it. A service worker gives it some extra brains and capabilities, which we're going to look into more, so that you don't need to, everybody at home, if you're panicking, like, wait, let me Google that. Don't worry about it. We're going to show it today. So maybe a good question here is, why would I do this? Like what's the benefit to me as a developer of taking the extra steps of creating the manifest in a service worker?
That's a great question. And I can tell you probably a lot of reasons why, but I can think of a few. Accessibility, right?
Okay.
And what do I mean with accessibility? Let's go by steps.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give you like a personal story, like true story. You know, it actually happened. So I used to do consulting back in the days for a company that is actually fairly big, right? When I was doing consulting for that company, they were, if I'm not mistaken, in 70 countries, right? And they sell products online. Mm-hmm. The problem with that this company was encountering is that the majority of their customers are in developing countries.
Sure.
I'm Mexican. I know one of the problems that we have in developing countries is internet connection.
Sure.
You know, or internet might not be super fast, which means a lot of people, you know, they just get tired of surfing the web and they just exit your application and they don't continue their workflow.
Right.
With progressive web applications, they're extremely friendly with offline, right? Meaning you can still use your web app if you're offline, and you might be thinking, wait, what are you talking about, Pato? I need internet to have my web working, right? I know I might sound a little bit crazy, but it's true. So basically, this is how it works. When I mean with accessibility, you have your web application, you make it a PWA, right? Mm-hmm. Now you can use caching strategies to make your application work offline, right? So instead of every time that you open a website, making a request to the server, bringing the images, the CSS, the connection to the database and all that, you're not gonna keep doing that over and over and over. You're gonna do it one time and one time only, mm-hmm. right? And so yes, the first time that the user wants to access your website, yes, they're gonna need internet connection, but from there, they don't have to depend on internet connection all the time.
Got it.
So I'm just gonna give you an example. Let's pretend that I was, using the application for my previous client and I wanted to buy a pair of shoes, and my internet connection wasn't very good. So I could be thinking, oh my God, I need to be, somewhere in the city to have a better internet connection to purchase my shoes. Mm-hmm. You don't really have to worry about that. I opened the application the first time, things are cached. I went through the workflow of purchasing my shoes with the help of the service worker, because the service workers did the caching strategies, mm-hmm. right? And maybe you implemented as well the background sync API. The background sync API allows you to use your application the same way that if you were using your application offline. Gotcha. So one thing is the service worker that helps you cache the assets and the network calls. And one thing is the background sync API. So okay. I don't want to confuse you. There are two things. The background sync API, what it does is, hey, use your application like if you were online, but whenever you actually reach connectivity, the background sync API is gonna be aware of that, and it's gonna make the service call for you.
Yeah. So it's sort of like it's sort of like I'm making a list of steps, and then the background sync API is keeping that list of steps, and then when it can, it executes those steps. But for me, they appear as if they're already done because I like the app allows me to kind of keep moving through my flow. Exactly. Okay.
So cool. I purchased my shoes, and actually they're not fully purchased because there's the requests are living in the background for the background sync API to trigger. But mm-hmm. in my head, I already purchased the shoes. I go and play soccer, and then I decide to go to the city in 2 hours or the next day, and then the background sync API gets triggered and like, hey, there's actually internet connection. Go and send the request to the server, right? So that's part of the accessibility, right? Also, another way that you can think about accessibility in different countries or places that don't have full internet connection, you don't need the background sync API all the time. I mean, it depends on your use case, right? The background sync API is very complex, but it's very easy to make your application work offline with just service workers. Mm-hmm. Maybe, just to give you an example, maybe you have a list of books, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you have a web application that pulls a list of books and you want to maybe read a few of them. So maybe you can even like cache that, right? And every time that you open your application, even if you're offline, you can read them.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to be pulling the assets and or the information from the database over and over and over. And that's actually a good practice that people should follow whenever they're working with any single web application. Mm-hmm. How many times has it happened, Jason, that you have an application that everyone that uses that app is going to be working online, mm-hmm. right? Maybe at the corporate office.
Right.
But they keep pulling the same data over and over and over and over. Those requests mm-hmm. affect the performance of your application.
Absolutely.
Right. Those requests, if you're using AWS or another tool, that means that it's gonna cost you money every mm-hmm. time that you make a request to the cloud, right? So you can avoid these kind of things by using caching strategies and service workers. Just to give you an example, let's pretend that you are a professor, right? And you have a list of 100 students. Most likely your students are not going to change throughout the semester, mm-hmm. right? Unless, they're like, oh, Jason is like super hard. I'm going to drop this class, but you know what I mean? So basically what you can do is you can cache the network call that pulls information from the database that mm-hmm. contains 100 students, right? And you open this application every day, but you're not going to be making the server call over and over and over. But maybe what you can do is you can change your caching strategy so that it expires after a week.
Sure.
So in a week, it makes the server call again.
Right.
So you can do that.
Great. So, I mean, this sounds really promising. I see some questions. Are we going to work with the background syncing API today?
No, because that will require like 4 hours of streaming.
Okay, all right. Then let me ask this question. What happens if the background sync API fails or times out? Does it do a bunch of retries or like?
If those retries, what is a good practice to do is have like canned data, if I want to call it that way, right? Or mm-hmm. or a message, saying people, hey, the cell didn't go through. We weren't able to make the server call, something like that. I mean, just a more user-friendly message explaining people what's going on.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so I think at this point, the easiest thing to do might be to actually just dive right in and give this thing a try. So why don't we switch over to the page here? So I'm going to go to this view. And you can see here that we've got live captioning happening on the homepage of the site. This is being done by Jordan from White Coat Captioning today. Thank you very much, Jordan. And that is made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, and Auth0, all of whom are making the show more accessible to more people. You can watch that right on the homepage of the site. And we are talking today to, if I can get to the right tab, this is Pato's Twitter, Dev Pato. So you can go and give him a follow and get lots more insights. And is there a resource that you recommend people go to if they want to get the overview of progressive web apps?
Yes, I can share them in the live stream if you want.
Yeah, please do.
There's multiple things that I want to share. So basically, I love progressive web applications, and I have tutorials for React, Angular, and just vanilla PWAs. Mm-hmm. So let me share that with the audience. And also, just as an FYI, Twitter uses PWAs. So the actual website or web app of Twitter is a PWA. So Instagram as well, WhatsApp, Tinder, Starbucks. So a lot of people are moving towards that way as well.
Nice. I see some greetings in Spanish. I was happy that I could understand that. My Spanish is bad, but apparently not that bad. Great. So did you share links somewhere?
I'm pasting that right now.
Okay, great.
There you go.
All right. So here is a couple links we can share. Let me pull this up. I'll make sure these go into the show notes as well. So here's one on an introduction to PWAs, and then This is web.dev. Web.dev is one that I have seen before, and here's an overview of progressive web apps. Okay, great. So
honestly, like if you're gonna look for everyone in the audience, if you're gonna look at a link, I would suggest you to look at the one from web.dev. It's from developers from Google, and they're like way smarter than me. So I recommend you to take a look to that one. And if you just want to learn more or just complement your knowledge, take a look to my article then.
Great. Awesome. Well, so these will be in the show notes. Now, I am not going to read these yet because today you're going to be my tutorial. So what should my first step be if I want to build one of these?
Okay, so the first step is to create a web application. And what do we need for a web application? We need a index HTML.
Mm-hmm.
We need a JavaScript file, and we need a CSS.
All right, so let me get into this folder. I'm going to get in it, and then we'll open this thing up. All right. And wow, that is huge. What was I doing? Okay. So here's my empty folder. And so you said I need an index.html.
Correct.
I need a CSS.
Mm-hmm.
And what else did I need?
And your index.js.
Index.js. Okay. So
those are the basic components for a web application. Now we need the basic requirements or the basic files to make your web app a progressive web application.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm setting up the very basics here.
The very basics, yeah, no problem.
All right, so let's do a script tag. And I'm going to bring in index.js. And okay, all right, here's okay, so there's our app. All right, and if I run this, which like we can run this a handful of ways, I'm just going to use Netlify Dev because it'll just I use it all the time because it just makes things work. But all right, so here's this app. Let me get this over here, and then I'll minify that. That's a whole other thing. If you want to know what that is, watch Prisma Serverless. So here's our app running, right? And if I look in the network tab and I refresh, we've got our styles.css, which is empty, index.js, which is empty, but they're both loaded without errors. And that is good news. And I can close that because we don't need that query string. All right, so here we go. We got this thing going.
So go back to your code editor, please, to your IDE, and then the first step will be to create a manifest.json file in the root of your folder.
Okay.
Beautiful. So now we are gonna navigate to. I want to show people where can they get this structure, right? Because it's actually a boilerplate. It's not gonna change all the time. So what you can do is go to the Progressive Web Apps website, that one right there. Scroll down. And let's look for the manifest. Okay, so right there, as you can see, it's gonna exactly click on that one. Shout out to those people who wrote this. So that's awesome. So copy that code, and we're gonna go through it in a second.
Okay, so let's take a look at what we got here.
Yeah. So this is boilerplate code. It's always gonna be the same. So please don't try to memorize this, just copy paste it. And so basically the short name is the name that your application is going to have, right? And the icons are going to differ based on the size of your screen.
Mm-hmm.
So for this example, we're not going to use all the icons, right? Okay. Let's do maybe, I don't know, maybe we can do like 2, just to show us an example. So you do the 512.
I should have something in here that we can use. Let's.
If not, I can send you something too as well.
Let's see what I got. I'm sure I have some nonsense in here. Here's the Learn with JSON design files, and I probably have. Where am I? Yeah, here are my emoji. One of these is going to work. How about this? We'll make this into our setup. So I can export this as a PNG, and you said 512?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll go 512. Then we also want to export it as, did you say have a different size?
Yes, and let's do 192 as well.
192. And we'll call it 192. We'll call this one 512. And PNG is okay, or do you want a different?
No, PNG is perfect.
Okay, so let's export. Come on. Oh, we're beach balling. Wait, you can do it.
Fingers crossed.
I have about a billion things running on this computer, and it's an old one. This is definitely not an M1. Come on.
You need to tell Netlify to sponsor you the new M1.
I know. All right, let's see if I can try this one more time. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to export. Exporting. Do the thing. Do the thing. Oh no, I don't think it can do the thing. All right, let's see what I have on my computer that might work. I'm going to search off screen because I have no idea what's on here. Let me see if I just have something at 512. Name matches 512. No, don't see anything there. Let's look for a JPEG. Here is... I gotta have something in here. Jeez.
I can get you one really quick. Give me a second.
Let's go. I got something in here. I gotta have something in here. You know what? This is gonna work. So I've got this SVG, and we can just use that, right?
I haven't used SVGs before with the manifest.json.
Okay, well, oh wait, I just found some PNGs. What sizes are
these? There you go.
I have no idea what size these are, but they should maybe work.
Yeah, they should work.
All right, we'll just make those work then. Okay, so here is my PNG. It says that it is 512. Okay, perfect. So let's
go back to copy the name.
Okay.
Beautiful. Now go back to your manifest.json, and there you go. Yeah, just replace the source for that one right there.
That one. And then let's see if one of these other ones is a different size. Are you a different? Oh, no, these are all the same size. Okay, that's fine.
It's fine. Just
can we just use the one? Is that okay?
Yeah, just use the one 512. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. And then, okay, we have the icon. So remember, guys, the icon is the icon that is going to be shown in your mobile device whenever you install the progressive web application. So the start URL is essentially telling the
like the icon
browser.
Yeah.
Where is the starting root, right? So for this case, just erase the question mark and source equal to PWA. Just leave the backslash, right?
We go to the home page by default.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then the background, right? So every time that you have an application, right, you have different things on the manifest. You have different colors, right? So if you take a look to the theme color and the background color, there are different things. So the background color, let me pull that up really quick because I was getting confused. There you go. Let's see. Background color.
Let's see, where's the theme color down here?
So the theme color is the bar. So every time that you install an application, right? The navigation bar is going to have a color. That navigation bar can be blue, white, black, orange, or however. In this case, you can just leave it as it is. So that's the theme color, yes.
Okay. And so the background will be the splash screen. This will be the bar. Great.
So whenever you are installing the application, there's going to be a splash screen, and it's going to be the background color that you assign.
Got it. Okay.
What else you need to know? Standalone is the orientation of your screen. Standalone is the default one and the most common practice one. Leave it as it is. There are other displays properties that you can use, but the problem with those ones is that it affects accessibility.
Got it.
So people that have reading issues or something like that can be more complex for them to use a progressive web application. So just leave it as it is.
Got it. Okay. And then scope is like, that's if I wanted this to be like dashboard was my PWA and your start URL would be dashboard, I could change my scope so that it only tried to use the dashboard.
Exactly.
Got it.
So now in the let's see, shortcuts. Let's see if you should you don't need all that. Just for the timing, just erase everything from shortcuts all the way down.
For all of it, we don't need any of it.
Yeah, we don't need any of that. That information is basically for you whenever you upload your PWA into a PWA store, right?
Oh, I got you.
To be more descriptive, but just for the sake of time, we're just not gonna do it. Cool. But be mindful that there's such a thing, right? The same way that you have a native application and requires screenshots and requires a description, the same for a PWA. Whenever you want to upload it into a PWA store.
Got it.
Awesome. So we have the manifest.json. Beautiful. Now go back to your application.
Okay.
But in the server, whenever you're like running it in the browser.
Or was I doing that here?
There you go.
Yeah, it's still running.
Okay, is that doing hot reload or not?
It's not. I mean, no, but I just refreshed the page.
Okay, awesome.
And if I go to manifest.json, it's there.
There you go.
Now, we're not linked to it or anything, though.
No. So what we have to do is link it. So go to your index.html page, please. And we have to let the web application be aware of the manifest.json. So inside of your head, you're going to open up a link tag. And then you're going to do, there you go. Autocomplete. Love it.
VS Code makes this very easy. So, you just start typing link and then it asks you what you want. And it's like, oh, hey, look, that looks right.
Awesome.
Very handy.
Perfect. So now we have successfully linked. Well, hopefully, if you want, go back. And how can you test if this has linked properly? What I want you to do, Jason, is please open up Google Developer Tools. And you're going to see a tab that says Application. Click in there. And if you scroll, there you go. Click on the manifest file all the way to the top. And if you scroll down, I mean, it has been successfully linked, right? So you can see the theme color, the background color, scroll down, all the way down. And there's your icon.
Nice. Great.
So those are the basic things that you need for a manifest.json. So now let's get into the more complex and more fun part, in my personal point of view, which is using the service worker. As you can see, under the manifest tab on your left side, there's another tab that says service worker. If you click on it, there's nothing there. Why? Because we haven't installed the service worker in our application. So why don't we go ahead, Jason, and create one service worker?
Okay. I'm creating a new file. Does it need to be called something in particular?
You can name it however you want. There's two names that usually people name their service workers, either service worker.js or sw.js.
Okay, let's go for description. Like that?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Now, what we need to do is, okay, we have that. And we need to, first of all, let your application know about the service worker, right? We need to make it aware. Just as for FYI, the JavaScript service workers are not regular JavaScript files.
Okay.
That's something that you have to be aware of. So the service workers, they live in the background of your browser, right? Because they do certain things that regular JavaScript files don't perform. For example, a service worker has the ability, right, to receive push notifications in the background, even if you don't have the website open.
Okay.
Right? So it's completely different. So the first thing that we have to do is let the application know about the service worker. So if you go back to the index.js file,
index.js,
that file, so what? Yes,
index.js.
Right.
Okay.
That file right there is actually aware of, the application that it uses this file is like any other JavaScript file, right? No problem. So what we have to do here is, first of all, we have to link this index.js file with your application, which is gonna be happening in the index HTML.
That part is already done. So
okay, you did that already? Awesome. Let's just test it out.
Yeah, let's double check. So here we should see, yep, there we go. All right,
Ooh,
so our JavaScript is loading.
Awesome. So we need to register the service worker. And how do we do that? We actually do the registration inside of the index.js file, which is a regular or normal JavaScript file. So the first thing that we have to do is open up an if statement. And then you're going to type service worker in quotation marks.
Oh, okay. Like that, or is it capitalized, or?
Just like that.
Okay.
And no, I'm sorry, you're going to capitalize the S and the W.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Just the W. Go back to the S and leave it the way it was. Yes. There you go. And then you're going to do in navigator. And let's talk about this line. Essentially, what this line is doing is, hey, if the service workers are available in my navigator in this browser, then let's go ahead and use it, right? So now what we need to do is, if it's true, right, meaning that you're using a new browser or fairly new, you're gonna do window, which is a reserved keyword.
Okay.
Dot add event listener.
Okay.
And you're gonna open up a parenthesis, and in quotation marks, you're gonna write load. And then comma. There you go. You're faster than me. You're like a Vim. Your brain works at the speed of thought. Yeah. And inside of that, you're gonna type navigator dot service worker.
Okay.
Dot register. And then inside of the open up parentheses, quotation marks, and then you're gonna type the name of your service worker. FYI, everyone in the audience, it's good practice to have your service worker living in the root of your project. And you can only have one service worker.
Can you talk a little bit about why? Because I feel like this is a gotcha that people don't know about until it bites them.
Yeah. So for some reason, don't ask me why the browser only detects one service worker per application, right? There's some people that have more complex workflows, and they require to have more than one service worker. Jason, what do I do now? I need to have 3 service workers. What do I do? No problem. You can actually combine them into one. You can still have the 3 separate files, and you're going to import, let's say, 2 service workers into one, and then you're going to have one single source of truth. And then you will just work with one service worker.
And then the other part about this is something that threw me is, why do we have to put it at the root? Like, why can't I put it in my assets JavaScript or like asset service worker file?
You can actually put it anywhere, right? But it's best practice to have it in the root. But if you change the place where the service worker is gonna be living, you need to specify JavaScript that is gonna live somewhere else.
Now, is that so? I was under the impression that the service worker had to be at the highest level that it had scope to, right? And the like, so I was led to believe that in order for the service worker to actually cache resources at the root, the service worker had to be at the root, because if you put it in like an assets folder, it would only be able to affect anything in that assets subpath.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm like 90% sure that you can change the scope of that.
Okay. Yeah. It's been a while since I've looked at this, so it's entirely possible that things have changed. I was under
But
the
hey,
impression that
I mean, I could be wrong, and I'm always open for feedback. But I'm like pretty sure that you can choose the scope, but it's not good practice because you have to, like most of the people put in the root.
Gotcha.
And the reason why I'm saying this is because I was working in a plugin for installing push notifications into your device, right, using WordPress. And for some reason, WordPress was requiring us to change the scope of the service worker. So I had to figure out how that worked. Wait. Scratch that. No, it has to live in the root. And now I remember, it has to live in the root, but all your other service workers, they can live somewhere else.
And you can import them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 100% right.
And,
yes.
and the reason for that is security, right?
Well, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So basically, because service workers are really powerful, like you get to proxy things, you get to catch all the data coming in and out. You can do all sorts of stuff with service workers that if somebody was trying to be evil, they could be real evil with service workers. So in order to prevent like somebody who has a customizable profile from uploading a service worker at like yoursite.com/their profile name, and then they put in a service worker and take over your whole website, because service workers would let them do that if they could go up a level, this would scope them only to their own like subdomain or their subpath of like /username. And this is, I mean, ideally you wouldn't let people upload a service worker to any service that you had them on. But this can also be useful if you're using like proxy domains. So if you've got multiple apps and each of those apps is being served at like /home/dashboard/account, right? Then each of those could have a service worker scoped to /account or /dashboard, which would let them do things like make it work offline. But they wouldn't be able to, like, the dashboard team couldn't accidentally break the account team's UI by having their scope leak, because they're limited to just the one subpath that they're in. And that's why service workers have to live where they are. They can't actually go up levels in scope.
That's awesome. I didn't know all that information, and that explains why Webflow doesn't allow you to upload service workers.
Yes, exactly. Anything that's in a subpath is potentially a
risk.
A risk, right? And
makes sense.
But the way that they've mitigated that risk is by saying you can only be in your own subpath. You can't go up levels from a service worker.
Awesome. So want to continue?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So the first thing that you have to know is the registration of your service worker is actually a promise, right? And what do we need to do with promise? We need to trigger them, right? That's up to you. You can do the async await or just do that then.
Let's do one of these because it's a little cleaner to write.
Yeah, sounds good.
Do I need to store it?
No, you don't.
Okay.
And if you want, just you have your service worker. No, because we're not gonna do anything else with the service worker. In this case, we're only gonna register.
Okay.
So that seems correct to me. So why don't we go ahead and test it out?
Okay.
So writing the service worker, just write do console log and then service worker.
Okay.
And then save it, and let's rerun our application. There you go.
Okay, so it logged.
It logged. Now go to application, and then the service worker, you can see that it's active and is running. So if you see that status as green, that's beautiful. You're in good hands. So now let's talk about the things that you can do with a service worker, right? So like we were saying, you can cache.
Right.
So why don't we do some caching.
Yeah, let's do it.
Go back to your index.html file and just do me a favor. Just add a random image. Maybe you can use the same one from for the icon.
I
just
have,
put it some.
I have some links here. Yeah, let's do one of these. Here's a picture of me on a stage. And so we can go open this, and that's a big image. Do you want me to save it locally?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's save the image. And we're gonna go to GitHub, learn with Jason here, and we'll save it. All right, so this image is huge. This is going to be, because that's like the full size uncompressed image. So if we look at in here, it's 913 kilobytes. It's a big image, and
yeah, it's a big boy.
Yeah, uncompressed, unoptimized, just for whoever needs it for trolling or whatever.
Awesome.
So there we go. We've got that. I'm gonna change the name to be just something easier for me to type. Just call it jason.jpg, and then let's load that up in here. And we can go with jason.jpg, and we'll add some alt text.
Because we care about accessibility.
Absolutely, we do. All right, so now we've got an image, and that,
beautiful.
If I come out here, should show up. Woof. All right, can I do a little bit of CSS just to clean this up?
Yeah, of course.
All right, so let's go with HTML and body. We'll go with, I've got this shortcut here to make that happen. And then
nice.
I can go with image, and we'll go with max width of, let's call it 600 pixels. And that should, yeah, a little bit less jarring to look at.
Awesome. So now, why don't we go ahead and use the service workers to cache some of our assets, okay. Right? Let's go ahead and cache the index HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, and your image. So the first thing that we have to do is to name our cache, right? Let's give it a name. So write const. Yeah, and then maybe you can name it cache name.
Cache name.
Equal, and then just do like JSON V as in Victor and 1.0 or something like that.
Okay.
There you go. So that's gonna be your cache name, right? So the next thing that we have to do is tell the cache what are the files that we're gonna be caching.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's multiple of them, we're gonna have to use an array.
Okay.
So why don't you create an array of files to cache? Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And then I want you to specify exactly. Yeah, those are the files that we're gonna be caching today. Everyone in the audience. So it's gonna be the index, the install CSS, the index.js, and the image.json uploaded.
Oh wait, I can do this. Multi-cursors. Here we go. Oops. Oh no, I made it so much worse. What have I done? Okay, let's try that one.
And they have to be in quotation marks.
This got so bad. Yeah. I was like, this is going to be great. And then I just couldn't remember how to do it. Okay, there we go. So here is our list of files. Let me just double check that I got all those right. Index.html, styles.css, index.js, json.jpg. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Beautiful. So now the service worker, well, the service workers in general, they have life cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that you have to do with a service worker is register the service worker.
Okay.
The second one is to install the service worker. And during the process of installing, you can do some caching, right?
Okay.
So do you want to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So the first thing that we have to do is use the word self and then dot at the event listener.
Okay.
And we're gonna use the reserve word install because we're in the life cycle of installing the service worker. right? And then you're gonna do, yeah, you can do that. But inside of the parentheses, I want you to put the word event.
Okay.
Beautiful. And then you're gonna do just to make sure that we're in the correct process of installing. Do a console log that says install service worker or something like that.
Okay.
Nice. And then a new line, and you're gonna do event dot wait until. Until is gonna be capital U. There you go. And inside of that, you're gonna have a parenthesis. And what I want you to do is open the cache, right?
Okay.
So use the reserved keyword caches.
Here.
Yes.
Okay.
And then dot open.
Ooh,
No.
Wait, I'm confused.
Yes. Erase everything inside of the parentheses. There you go. And then caches. Dot open.
Like that?
There you go. Yes, just like that. Why? Because
okay, so it's not a callback. I got confused.
No, it's not a callback. Caches is a reserved keyword, right? So what are you telling your web application right here is like, hey, open up my cache. But which cache, Jason? Which cache are we opening?
Well, we need to open this one, but we're not 100% sure yet. So do I just drop that in here?
Let's open that one. Yeah, yes, right there instead of open.
I understand. Okay.
And then that's actually a promise, right? And once again, what do we need to do with promises? We need to trigger them. Yes, you can use the sync.
Here or caches?
Event, wait. Caches is the one that is the promise. Yeah. So yeah. So if you want, yeah. And what else we need to do? Oh yes, now we need to specify. You're gonna. I'm sorry. Okay, we have a wait caches that open cache name, and you're gonna store that inside of a variable, and you can name it cache if you want. So you're gonna have to open up curly brackets for that.
Like this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget to declare the const of your cache.
Okay. Like that.
Yes. Okay. Let me make sure everything looks good.
So wait, this one needs to be async then, not
async,
this one.
correct. Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. I was confused. Awesome. I'm not confused anymore.
Okay, perfect. My bad. What do we need to do now? So we have opened up the cache.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have to tell that cache what files are we storing. So the cache has a method called @all, right? Okay. In this case, we're gonna be using that one because we are passing an array. And Jason, can you tell me what array am I passing?
Is it just this straight up, or do we need to do something to it first?
It's just that one.
Okay.
And then you're gonna save that. And I think that looks correct to me. What do you think?
I believe you.
Okay, fingers crossed. So everyone in the audience, please cheer us up. So now save your file and open up the browser. Refresh the page. Let's see if this worked. And
okay, so now do you see what's happened here? Yes. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes, that's another life cycle. So basically, we have to complete the life cycle of the service worker. Good call. So why don't we go ahead and complete the life cycles?
And I do that just by loading the page again, right?
Refresh. So no. So go back.
Okay.
So we need to activate the service worker, right? So once again, at the bottom of the page, just create a new line and do self once again dot add event listener. And then we're gonna use the activate lifecycle and just do it inside of quotation marks.
Okay.
And then you're gonna do an event as well, like we did in the other one.
Okay.
And this is a very, very, very cool life cycle. And the reason is for the following. Most of the people use this life cycle to clear their cache, right? It's going to happen that maybe right now we only are caching 4 files, but maybe in the future you want to cache five files or something different, right?
Okay.
And you want to change the name of your cache because it's good practice. As you can see, we have version 1.0, but maybe later on it's going to be version 1.1 or 2.0
Right.
or so on. So what we need to do is remove all caches, right? Caches that are not being used.
Okay.
So once again, we're going to use the keyword caches. Remove that in line 15. Yes, caches. Dot keys. And open a parentheses. And well, this is going to be a promise as well. So let's go ahead and do the sync and the wait.
So this is going to be keys, right?
Yes. And keys list. Okay, perfect. And now what we need to do is, so that is returning you a promise, right? So
it shouldn't be a promise anymore, right? Because I awaited it. So it should be an array of keys.
Correct. And now what we need to do is iterate through all the promises.
Whoops.
Right?
Keys. For each.
You can do for each, yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then what you want to do is compare. You're gonna compare the each key, right, that you have in the cache with the cache name, right? So basically, this is what we're doing. If you want, just wait a second. So what we're gonna be doing is comparing the name of the key. Of the keys, which is everything that you have inside of your cache with a cache name, right?
Right.
If it's not different, right? I'm sorry. If it's different, then you're gonna remove that specific key from the cache. You're gonna remove it. So let's go through that again. Let's pretend that I have a cache named 1.0 and I have a cache named 2.0. That means that my cache 1.0, it's old.
Right.
So I'm going to remove that cache if it's different, and I'm going to keep the new one, right? So what we need to do is, instead of doing keys equal, you can do if it's different, if it's not equal.
Okay.
Right. And then you're going to do, you're going to do return dot caches and I'm missing something. Hold on, I'm missing something. Promise that all. Okay, so here's a problem. A problem is that every time that you're doing this is a new promise, right? So we actually have you used the promise that all method. So why don't we go ahead and use that? For those who don't know, the promise that all essentially grabs a group of promises and returns a single promise.
Okay, so we can move this up here.
And
then
caches.
Is it like delete?
And then cache dot delete, and yes. And why are we using delete? Because delete is a method that erases key values from an object. Right?
And so the reason that this is important is that, like, as I'm asking you to cache things for my web app, the browser's not going to give me unlimited storage, right? And also it's just kind of a jerk move to say, like, hey, store megabytes of my old resources that I'll never use again on your machine.
Yeah, that's perfect. So okay, that looks correct.
Mm-hmm.
Now at the bottom of your activate,
Like down here.
yes,
Okay.
right there. What I want you to do is do event dot wait until self dot clients dot claim. And let's talk about that like really quick. Essentially, the clients
Self.client dot
claim.
claim.
Yes.
Is that a function?
And open and close parentheses.
Okay.
There you go.
Does this need to be a callback like this one?
Scroll down. No, it should be like that.
Okay.
So let's talk about what the clients that claim is. So they make your service worker take control of the page when you first register the service worker. If there's already a service worker on the page, it will make no difference. So basically now your service worker, thanks to this line, is gonna be taking control of your app,
Mhm.
right? And so yeah. Now want to test it out?
Yeah, let's test it out. Here I go.
Okay, let's test it out. Fingers crossed. Okay, let's do something. Go to click on storage on the left side.
Storage.
On the left side, and then click on clear site data, because probably the service worker, the old one, is taking control. So now refresh your page.
Okay, activated and is running, and I have an error.
Okay, let's look at that error.
Cannot read properties of undefined reading claim.
Okay.
So that's this one. So client is undefined.
Client. Oh, it's clients.
Clients.
Yeah, my bad. My accent.
No worries. Let's try that again.
Now,
okay, no errors this time. It installed, but 976 is not 976. Oh, but we got errors again. What do we got?
Okay, let's click on that error. Let's see.
Failed to execute. Wait until the event handler is already finished and no extend lifetime promises are outstanding.
Okay, let's see. Let's debug this. Okay, so so line 25 is not giving us an error anymore, right?
I think it is.
It is?
It's
Okay.
yeah, it's line 25, but now it's the wait until. So the way, am I supposed to not call this?
No, you're supposed to call that, yes. But let's see. I think our promise, okay, caches. We got the promise.all. Yes. We got a keys.map. Then I'm checking if my cache is not the same, right? If that wait until. FYI, guys, this is the reason why people don't like service workers, because you can make a mistake very easy, and that's the reason why people use workbox, which we can talk about it later on. But okay, this is fun. Okay, so solve that clients. Let's see.
Are you sure it doesn't need to be a callback? Like I feel like it's yelling at us because we're not doing this inside of a callback. Because the error that it's giving us is that it's not receiving a promise.
Okay, let's test it out.
Okay, let me just do let me do one of these, and we'll just see.
This is the cool thing about pair programming, because we don't remember everything from the top of our head.
Okay, so I'm gonna clear the site data, and then we're gonna come back in here and run it again. It installs, and it doesn't like, still doesn't like this. So it's
well, we have one error now instead of two, so that's a winning.
What's up, Alex? Thank you for the raid. Welcome, everybody. We are debugging service workers.
Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, we have the wait cache that keys, which is And then, trying to see. Let me look it up. Maybe activate service worker.
Yeah, let's.
I don't remember everything from the top of my head. So, okay.
See if we can get into. I'm just clicking around through resources here on web.dev, which is very powerful. And looking for, boy, there's a lot you can do with this. It's kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's insane everything that you can do with service workers. Let's see.
I'm scrolling.
So let's see. No, I want you to go back to web.dev.
There's a question. Does it need to be self? Like, can it just be clients.claim?
Let's see. Self. We're passing. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, I don't remember everything from the top of my head, but it should be self.
Okay.
But I want you to scroll all the way to the top.
All the way to the top.
Yes. And then maybe let's try to use their search and type activate service worker. Let's see what it gives us.
Think this one will help us?
Yeah, probably. Let's see. Let's take a look to that one.
Okay, so let's take a peek at what.
There's register service worker right there. Okay, scroll up. You see where it says activate right there? Let's click on that one. Let's see where it takes us. Okay. It's talking about the claims. That's good.
Should we pop into this and just look at the code?
Sure.
All right. An image will appear here in 3 seconds. Yeah, but how do I want to see the source code.
Yes.
If I want to see, somebody remind me, how does glitch work? If I go here and here, maybe? Nope, that's not it. Can I just search for a project name? Yes, this is the one. View source, that's what we were looking for in the first place. And now this is such a fun thing. All right, I want to see my service worker. No, but I want to see the service worker code. All right, so on activate, clients claim.
Oh, they're using claims, okay.
So I don't know if we need to, do we even need to wait? Like, can we just, like,
yeah.
Whoa, what did I just do? Let's do one of these.
There you go. Right. Let's try that out.
All right, let's try this out. Here we go. So I'm coming out here. I'm going to clear this service worker again. Just get it out of here. And then we're going to try this. Fresh, activated, running. Baha. All right, and now we should see, did it cache?
Let's see now. No, it didn't cache. So click on, do you see where it says cache on your left?
Cache on my left.
And yeah, you don't have anything cached. So let's try to debug why it's not caching. Okay. So that should be a problem inside of your install, right there. So okay, we have the event that wait until async. Okay, that seems fine. I mean, we're opening the cache, right? And oh wait, no, yeah, we have the wait until. That seems correct to me.
Okay, should we peek at more of these demos and see what they're saying?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Right, go back to the. Maybe they have something in there.
Let's see. So this one doesn't show that.
Maybe so they had the one for the install right there, and where they're caching things. Okay, so
this one caches.
We have that, and that is a promise, and
cache.add,
which in our case we're using cache.addAll.
Cache.add and cache.add. So I'm wondering,
they're using that add instead of that all because it's just a single file.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if maybe we should just go with their setup here instead of doing it as a as like a async await. Okay. Just because I've never tried it.
Yeah.
Try it like this. Okay. And then let's go back out here and try again. And this theoretically should... Okay, now it doesn't like missing things on line 7. I forgot 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right. Try it one more time. Okay. So this...
And now it's working.
984 is activated and running, but it doesn't like... Oh, that's okay. Let's go look at the application memory, storage. Hey!
And then check this out.
Cache storage.
Yeah. If you go to your left where it says caches, expand it, and it says the name of your cache, right? So now you have the index.html, and you can click on the files that you have cached. Yes.
This is cool. Okay, so check this out. So now if I clear this and I refresh, then it shows each of these came in. Initiator other. Now if I refresh, does it show service worker? Did I do a thing that like turn this off? Because I definitely might have.
To turn off what?
The caching part. Because it's not actually showing that it was loaded by the service worker. Do we have to check the fetch and like return from the cache to get it to actually show up?
Yeah. So let's do something else. That's another life cycle of service worker, which is interesting that you talk about fetch, right? Which is a caching strategy. So what we can do is, for example, we can check if things are cached, right? Mm-hmm. And if they're cached, then I want to return that file from the cache instead of from the server. And if it's not cached, then let's hit the server.
Okay.
So right there, you can just type enter and do solve.addEventListener. Oh, someone is telling you that disable cache is disabled.
Right. This would make sure that we didn't get anything from the cache. This should allow the cache to actually work.
Okay, there you go.
And so, right now it's not, like nothing is caching whatsoever. So we want the service worker to pick that up, and currently it's not doing that. So let's make it do it. So we've got the fetch, and I'm going to check is it an event again?
You got it.
Okay.
And then we're going to use the event.response with. And then if you want respond with.
Oh, respond with, like that?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, respond with. And then, respond with, let me remember. And then you're going to use async this time. And then open up parentheses. And then fat arrow. There you go. And then let's do const resource equal await. Once again, we're going to use the reserved keyword caches. That match. And you're going to do event.request. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then, okay, so essentially what's happening is, hey, let's pretend that, Jason, you're bringing up your image, right? Your picture. So that's a request, right? Every time that you that you're bringing something from the network is a new request.
Right.
So it's trying to find that request inside of the cache.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we need to do is check if the resource came back, right? If that so do if resource, I'm sorry, and then return resource. So if it was found in the cache, we are gonna be using that one.
Right.
But now, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. And now what we need to do is what happens, Jason, if the resource wasn't found in the cache?
Then we need to actually fetch it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do const response equal await, and then fetch. Then we can do event that request, and then return the response this time.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Or am I being crazy?
This does make sense.
Okay.
So if we have it cached, return the cache resource. Otherwise, get it like normal and return that. So theoretically speaking, when we go back in here and we go to our service worker and we make sure that it works the way we want it to.
But go back.
Did I forget to save this?
No, you are missing in line 23, right? You have the response keyword. You need to okay, you're missing something right there. Let me try to remember where it is. So line 23, after that parenthesis, I'm sorry, inside of that parenthesis, you are gonna have to, I think we're gonna have to execute this as well. Well, let's see, let me try to remember. So we have the async await, we have the curly bracket, right? Mm-hmm. And then you need the okay, and then you're gonna need no, I think that's it. Let's test it out. Let's see if you got an error. I think you got an error. Let's see. Let's check it out.
Let's see. Activated. All right. We've got our storage. Here's the storage. So let's go to the network and let's test. And it fails.
Okay.
And it failed because of something that we did. We were not resolving these requests properly.
Mm-hmm.
The fetch event for localhost 8888, the object that was not a response was passed to respond with. So one of these is not actually a response.
Oh, okay. I think I remember why. So to the response with, we need to pass that everything that from the return, mm-hmm. Right? If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. But before the word async, right? Oh wait, no. Let's see. So we did put that. Okay, open a parenthesis.
Where?
Right there. Yes.
Right here?
Yes, sir. No, just like close, remove that one. Okay. And we need to, in line 23, exactly where you have the cursor, you're going to open and close parentheses. So basically we need to trigger the thing inside to pass it to the response with. So open and close parentheses. I think that's a problem.
So like actually call the thing?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that was the issue. Well, let's see. Let's test it out.
Let's see if we can get it to... Okay, so that installed the service worker.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at that. There's our service worker.
Well, that was the problem, right? Okay.
Now we can also see that 9.8 kilobytes was transferred. There are 945 kilobytes of resources because, again, we've got this big old image on here. And because each of these was cached, we didn't actually have to bring the thing in. So our service worker brings in the icon, which we didn't cache. It brings in itself, and it looks like it brings in itself again over here. The manifest, its own like localhost self, and so it doesn't cache index.html. Do I need to cache
we haven't
slash instead of index.html?
Yeah, do slash. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so let's try that, and then we can even test this. Let's do 2.0.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And make sure that it does what we want. So I'm going to go.
Before you begin, hold on, Jason. Before you begin, I think just explaining people what's supposed to be happening,
sure.
Right? Our cache currently has the name of JSON -v 1.0. Now, since we added or modified the files that we want to cache, right? We're caching out the index HTML, and the name of my cache should be changed to 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Just for everyone that is in the same channel.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's test it out and let's break things up.
Okay. So I'm reloading. And did I forget to save? No, here's 987. Now I've got...
So there's
Did you see that? It went 2.0 and then it deleted 1.0. So this is all great. So now if I go out here and I refresh the page, everything except the manifest and the icon come from the service worker now, which is great because that means that the vast majority of our app is now cached. And if I go offline, does that mean it'll still load?
Let's test it out.
Okay, so I'm going to hit this offline button.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go down here and I'm going to reload the page.
There you go. So now your application support is working offline.
So, I mean, this is a really, really powerful thing. And as you can see, this is a little bit finicky. Like, we are about 10 minutes away from out of time. So we probably don't have enough time to actually show Workbox, but maybe we should talk about it a little bit. But before we do that, just a quick recap of what's happened here. So we were able to define the assets that were required for our app to run. We were able to set up the service worker to create a cache and put this stuff in it. Then whenever a request gets sent, this is why I'm saying this is a full proxy. And this is why this is so terrifying, because if somebody could get one of these onto your website and you didn't know about it, they could change every resource on your website to whatever they wanted, right? So that's why you need such security around service workers. But we're able to go check if we have it cached. If so, we don't even bother making a request. We send it straight back from the service worker. You save all that bandwidth. You save the HTTP round trip time. It just, boom, here in your browser.
Performance is going to be great.
And now we have the activation loop, which cleans up old caches and then makes sure that we claim the current client with our service worker so that it's actually running. So this is a very, very basic way of getting this set up, but you can see how this could expand. Like, I love this stuff because it's the sort of thing that when you have a need for this, this is so incredibly powerful, right? So we are short on time, so I want to make sure we can get to maybe more practical things, because probably you're not going to write your own service worker, right? That seems like maybe you might hit a use case where that's necessary, but probably you won't. So where should somebody go if they want to get this configured?
Can you explain that?
Like you mentioned Workbox earlier, and like, so if somebody's gonna get into like production service workers, where would you recommend they go?
Okay, so first of all, we need to define what Workbox is, right? I think that's important. So why don't you type Workbox JS or service worker? There you go.
This one, right?
That one right there.
Okay.
So Workbox is a super light open source library that is gonna make your life easier with JavaScript service workers, right? As you could see, it was very easy to mess up with the service workers, right? I mean, I don't have everything memorized from the top of my head. And it's very painful because you have to write everything by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And, we developers, we like to be lazy and smart and do things easier. So some geniuses came up with Workbox. And Workbox, essentially what it does is removes the boilerplate of writing a service worker, and you just focus on the things that matter the most, right? Like the caching strategies. So Workbox is amazing. I want to say probably like the majority of people who are building big applications are using Workbox. They're not writing their own service workers by scratch. But I think it's very important for us to show you how service workers work
Right.
without using workbooks, because you need to understand the basics, right? So I think
It's
that's
always like the way that I look at it is, you can never learn a thing about service workers, use Workbox, and you'll probably be fine. But
100%.
when
Yes.
you hit that edge case, you hit that thing, you're not quite sure why it's doing what it's doing. Knowing what's happening with service workers under the hood will make you faster at finding the bug. It's sort of like if you can write React or Vue or Svelte or whatever and never really learn JavaScript, and you're going to be okay. You can be a really productive web dev. If you
100%.
learn the underlying JavaScript, you're going to be faster when you need to solve a problem in a different way, or you hit the edges of the framework. So it's kind of one of those like optional but very helpful.
Exactly.
So Workbox, and then I saw a question, Deutschendorf. What shampoo am I using for my beard? I don't use shampoo for my beard. It dries out the skin. So I only use what's called a beard balm from a company called Colton King that just puts a little bit of oil back into it so that my skin doesn't dry out.
And something else that I wanted to talk about service workers is, for example, if you have a super tiny website like the one that we just built, I would say, in my personal point of view, that it's a bit of overhead to integrate Workbox.
Sure.
You just learn how to do it, how to do a PWA using regular or normal service worker without using Workbox. So it's good to know both if you can, but if you don't want to learn how to build your service worker from scratch, that's 100% valid. If you're using React, for example, you can convert your React application into a PWA just by literally running one command, right? For example, if you're using create React app, and create React app uses Workbox, right? Because they don't even think it's necessary for you to learn all the up and downs from service workers. So yeah, definitely, that's definitely a good tip, Jason. So now, if you scroll down, so the Workbox page, you can see how can it, scroll up. Right there. Why Workbox, right? Like I was telling you, Workbox already follows the best practices for the industry whenever you're working with JavaScript service workers. That way you don't make the mistakes that you can potentially make and try to debug a service worker. So it's very helpful for caching strategies like pre-caching, runtime caching. It is very easy to work with the background sync API, which is going to save you time. So definitely take a look to Workbox. And yeah, anything else that you want to add, Jason?
No, I think Workbox is great, and the API on this is not super heavy. You can do like this is not a great example because it's like here are 5 new concepts. Here's one thing that I will say about service workers. Service workers are one of those things that you may be looking at this right now going, why doesn't every website use this? And there is a reason. First and foremost, a lot of websites have too much content and they're not particularly useful because there's a limit on how much you can cache. So you shouldn't be trying to cache 8 gigabytes worth of stuff in people's browsers. If it's an informational website, it's a blog, it's something like that, it's not necessarily useful. And there is a huge foot gun with service workers, which is that if you register them incorrectly, you can get caught in a weird loop where your website won't render, and then people can't clear the service worker without getting into their dev tools. So you want to make sure that you're really careful and doing a really good job of testing your service workers before you completely hijack all of the requests on the site. Because if you get it wrong, it can be so painful to clear this up. What I would recommend is if there is a happy path for whatever tool you use. If you're using Gatsby, there's an option. I believe there's one built into Nuxt and a handful of the other frameworks out there where you can just say, I would like this app to be a PWA. They'll configure Workbox for you in a way that's pretty tested and isn't going to get you in trouble. If you're going to handwrite one yourself, test the bejeebus out of it before you take that thing to production, because the last thing you want is to have to send an email to all of your customers telling them how to open up DevTools and clear their service workers to get back to your website. Ask me how I know.
Retweet.
So it's definitely something that you just want to be aware of the power of this, because it is absolutely a great power, great responsibility tool. I've loved them. I've made some really, really cool things and really powerful things with service workers, But yeah, it is one of those things that if you go into this with a cavalier attitude, you can get burned pretty bad. So just be careful and make sure you know the risks as you're deploying things like this to production. Pato, I think that is all the time we have today. So where should I send people? I'm going to send everybody to your Twitter first and foremost. Any other links or resources that you want people to check out?
I posted the links already in the chat of Twitch.
Yes, you
but
dropped.
I don't have a problem doing it again.
You dropped this one here, Intro to Progressive Web Apps and Service Workers. So we'll make sure this is in the show notes. We've got the let's see, this one back here, Progressive Web Apps from web.dev. So we'll make sure that one shows up in the show notes as well. Anywhere else you want people to go find you or check out?
Oh yeah, they can even check. I just posted another link. It's a link to a repo that I have where I show people how to build a progressive web application. And there's two branches. There's a master branch and the dynamic cache, right? So the master branch, just to talk about that fairly quick, the master branch has like the basic setup that you need for your service worker. Then the dynamic one caches an actual API call.
Cool.
That is the difference. I wish we had time to get into that one today, but we can talk about service worker for like 1 year. We will never be done with them.
It's a rabbit hole. It can do a lot. Okay, so with that, we're out of time. So this episode, like every episode, was live captioned. We've had Jordan here with us from White Coat Captioning. That's available on the homepage of every episode of Learn with Jason. And that is made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, and Auth0, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people. And while you are on the website checking things out, make sure you go take a peek at the schedule. We've got a whole bunch of great stuff coming up. We are later this week on Thursday, we're going to talk to Sage. Sagun Adebayo is going to teach us about Chakra UI, which I'm very excited about. I don't know anything about it, so I'm really excited to see what the fuss is all about. People seem to love Chakra. I'm excited to see how it works. We are going to talk about Svelte and Auth0. If you're not familiar with Svelte or Auth0, both of them are very cool. Michael Chan's going to come and teach us about attribute selectors, and then we're just still going. Gatsby WordPress themes, distributed databases, better content, and then a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't put on the website yet. So stay tuned. Make sure you head over here, hit this ad on Google Calendar. Make sure you give a follow on Twitch. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, y'all. I think that's all the time we have for today. Pato, any parting words?
Thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. Hopefully people learn about PWAs and start applying the concept into their web applications.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Stay tuned. We're going to go find somebody to raid. Pato, thank you for your time. We will see you next time.